The saying in the image is a beautiful and profound expression of love and reverence for Imam Ali, may peace be upon him. It has been narrated that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, said that to look at the face of Ali is an act of worship, to remember Ali is an act of worship, and to love Ali is an act of worship. These words carry deep spiritual meaning and reveal the high position of Imam Ali in the sight of God and his messenger. To understand this saying, one must go beyond the surface of words. The statement does not refer merely to a physical act of seeing or speaking. It is about inner recognition, awareness, and connection. The face of Ali was not just the face of a man, it was the face of faith, courage, justice, and divine light. When the Prophet said that looking at the face of Ali is worship, he was pointing toward the reflection of divine beauty that shines through Ali. The Prophet knew that Ali was the mirror of truth, a man whose every word and deed were in complete harmony with the will of God. To look upon such a being is to look upon the manifestation of obedience, sincerity, and divine knowledge. When the Prophet described the remembrance of Ali as worship, it means that to remember Ali is to remember all that he stood for. Ali represents the path of truth, sacrifice, justice, and love. Remembering him is not merely repeating his name but keeping alive the values he lived and died for. His remembrance awakens the soul, reminds the heart of faith, and connects the believer to the spiritual legacy of Islam. Just as the remembrance of God brings peace to the heart, the remembrance of those loved by God also brings light to the heart. Imam Ali's life was a reflection of divine remembrance itself, for his every moment was spent in the service of truth. When the Prophet said that the love of Ali is worship, he gave the ultimate measure of devotion. True love of Ali is not just emotional attachment but sincere obedience to his teachings and imitation of his character. Love of Ali means love of justice, truth, humility, and faithfulness. It means standing with the oppressed, speaking the truth even when it is bitter, and never betraying trust. Such love purifies the soul and brings one closer to God, because Ali himself was the gate to divine knowledge and the path of righteousness. The Prophet had said, "I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gate." This shows that love for Ali is not separate from love for the Prophet and love for God. It is part of the same spiritual chain that leads to divine nearness. The beauty of this saying also lies in its simplicity. The Prophet did not use grand theological explanations. He used the word worship 3 times, connecting it directly with seeing, remembering, and loving Ali. This repetition teaches us that spirituality is not confined to rituals alone. True worship can take place in the heart, in the gaze, and in the soul's connection with truth. When a believer sees the face of a man filled with divine light, remembers him with sincerity, and loves him purely for God's sake, that believer is engaged in worship even without formal prayer. The face of Ali was the face of truthfulness. His eyes never turned away from justice. His heart never wavered from God. When people looked at him, they saw a man who represented all the teachings of Islam in living form. The Prophet's words invite believers to see beyond physical beauty and to recognize spiritual beauty. The worship in looking at Ali comes from recognizing the divine reflection in him. It is not about idolizing a person, it is about seeing the signs of God in a human being who perfectly embodied divine virtues. The remembrance of Ali is also worship because it revives faith in hearts that may have grown cold. In times of injustice, remembering Ali's stand for truth gives courage. In moments of confusion, remembering his wisdom gives clarity. In darkness, his words are like lamps of light. When believers remember him, they remember the values of Islam in their purest form. His remembrance becomes a means of inner purification and strength. The love of Ali is worship because love is the highest expression of faith. The Prophet once said that a person's faith is not complete until he loves Ali. Love for Ali is love for the truth. Those who love Ali are drawn to righteousness and away from hypocrisy. The heart that loves Ali cannot tolerate oppression or falsehood. It finds peace only in justice and goodness. Such love is not a worldly affection but a divine connection. It lifts the soul to higher states of awareness and brings the believer into the circle of divine mercy. These words of the Prophet are not limited to one time or one generation. They continue to speak to hearts across ages. They remind believers that true worship is not only in external acts but in inner devotion. Seeing, remembering, and loving those who embody divine truth is itself a form of worship because it connects the soul to God. Imam Ali was a living sign of divine truth. His knowledge, his piety, his patience, and his bravery were unmatched. The prophet's declaration about him was not merely praise but recognition of his spiritual status. The message also teaches respect and recognition of those whom God has chosen as guides. Looking at a person of divine character, remembering their example, and loving them purely for the sake of God are all acts that bring spiritual reward. The prophet's words encourage believers to develop eyes that see beyond appearances, hearts that remember goodness, and souls that love truth. In this way, every aspect of life can become an act of worship. If one looks at the deeper layers of meaning, each phrase of this saying unfolds a path of spiritual discipline. To look at Ali as worship means training the eyes to see with respect and awareness. To remember Ali as worship means training the mind to dwell on virtue and righteousness. To love Ali as worship means training the heart to prefer truth over desire. Together, these three form a complete path of devotion, the path of seeing rightly, remembering rightly, and loving rightly. In the world today, where people are often distracted by superficial matters, this teaching invites us to rediscover the essence of worship. It reminds us that the purpose of worship is not form but transformation. Worship is meant to purify the gaze, the memory, and the heart. When these are purified, the believer begins to see God's signs in everything. Such a person can look upon the face of a righteous one and find divine inspiration. He can remember a noble soul and feel spiritual peace. He can love for the sake of God and rise above selfishness. The prophet's words about Imam Ali therefore hold timeless value. They are not only about Ali as an individual but about the kind of person who mirrors divine truth. Yet, in the case of Ali, that mirror was perfect. His life was a reflection of the prophet's light. His worship was pure, his love sincere, and his justice absolute. Looking at him was looking at the fruit of the prophet's teachings. Remembering him was remembering the prophet's mission. Loving him was loving the path of God itself. In conclusion, this saying is not only a statement of honor but a lesson in spiritual insight. It calls the believers to find worship not just in rituals but in recognition, remembrance, and love. The face of truth, the remembrance of virtue, and the love of righteousness, all these are paths that lead the soul toward God. Imam Ali was, and remains, one of the greatest examples of divine reflection. To look at him with reverence, to remember him with sincerity, and to love him with faith is indeed worship, for in doing so one is reminded of the light of God that shines through the chosen ones.